I say.
Very warm welcome to Via the Grapevine with me, Guy McDonald. And wow, it's a very exciting one for me today because we deviate slightly from the usual track of chatting just about wine and what you can expect at the winery. And we deviate because something is very, very interesting landed on my desk, courtesy of Monique, a good friend of mine in PR. And she said, I don't know if this is something you'd like to talk about. And when I read what it was about, I was, yes, definitely. This is definitely something we want to share. Wine lovers who purchase Huis van Chevallerie's Circa Pinotage Brut Rosé bubbly will henceforth be supporting a Cape-based all-woman firefighting team that is arguably the only one in Africa. The fledgling outfit was established just over 12 months ago, and it's called Juliet Crew after the only female descriptor in the international phonetic alphabet. Can you believe there's only one? The team comprises young adults from at-risk communities. And my guest today is the lovely Christa von La Chevallerie, whose eponymous Swartland winery produces, amongst others, Filia Chenin Blanc, Cap Classique, and Nieuwedam Old Vine Chenin Blanc. Christa, welcome to Via the Grapevine.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks you for the invitation. And obviously Monique in her absence.
Yes.
A good networker.
I think it's wonderful being able to discuss different elements of the wine industry. And this is one of those. So I'm very excited to find out more about why you were inspired to support Juliet Crew. Maybe let's start there.
Well, after, 48 years of living on a farm, or let's say 46 in the meantime, we've sold the farm, and for 2 years now, I've been living in Riebeek Valley. And there was always this dream of mine to start supporting a cause, but dedicated to being part of the bigger picture. When you're a farmer, you support your community, you make sure that your farm workers are well taken care of, and you take care of your system as much and as well as you can. But once you leave that system, it sort of makes you hanging a little bit, and it makes you think, what can I do with the extra effort? What can I maybe do with a couple of rands extra? And where is that going to go? And Africa is a myriad of problems, so you can choose which one. There's no one better or worse than the other. But one thing that seems to have stuck around the way I'm even now doing business in making wine is still buying in grapes, still working with farmers, and still being part of that community. And the one thing that I'm almost going to say runs through the whole of the Western Cape, doesn't matter where your vineyards are and where your blocks are, is that there is a conservancy part of that, and as well as a fire part of that. And sometimes both of them go hand in hand. You do a controlled fire to get the fynbos back into its own life, and with that comes firefighting. And a friend of mine, Tessa, we're thick as thieves. And she said, come on, you're a woman in agriculture. You've been doing this for a myriad of years. And there is actually a woman firefighting team. And that's how we got onto this Juliet story. And I met Kylie, who's the superintendent or supervisor of the team. She's in charge of them. And she also comes from a myriad of other backgrounds. She started as a teacher. And with Kylie and her story, and also the plight for the crew that is very young, they've pretty much only stuck together for 12 months now, but the things they had to overcome sort of made me realize that wow, I was there once, and it makes you remember what you struggled with, and how can you support a couple of youngsters that come from a very not so, how do you say, privileged background, but want to do something, and their passion is fire. And at the end of the day, they want to be firefighters without being having the gender stamp on their forehead. So how can I help them reach that goal?
And so whereabouts are they based? How big is the Juliet Crew? Do you know any more details around that?
Yeah,
because this is, for me, the first time I've heard of them, which is sad.
Yeah, they're all young. I think going back to 21, 22, the oldest is 26, 28. They also tend to be so good in terms of athletically that they get wrapped up for other sponsorships in athletics or in doing different things. So it's hard for Kylie to keep her team together. And it's obviously when they gel together, a team like that, in firefighting, you know, they need time to come together, and everybody knows where their positions in the team are. I think the crew is 4 that have been there since day one. There've been some that have come and gone and due to different reasons, but now in the meantime there are 10 ladies, all exuberant. They're extraordinarily passionate about what they do, and Kylie, when she starts talking, it just comes out and it doesn't stop. She was here for the weekend. Yeah, she came to visit Friday, Saturday, and it is literally a fired up scenario. And it's easy to then become just as passionate for their cause as you are for your own.
So why is it significant then that the Huis van Chevallerie's contribution is provided through a portion of sales of Circa Pinotage Brut Rosé in particular?
It started with the Circa because those Pinotage blocks I work with always are around or close by a fynbos piece, you know, where the blocks are situated is always on a foothill, and there's a nice piece of fynbos right next door. So you know, the how do you say, playing that game of conservancy, but then you also need the fire, and then sometimes a fire can also take away. I just drove by a vineyard on the 302 from Stellenbosch yesterday, and the whole vineyard was taken out. And that's the kind of danger you have with fires, especially now in these dry times. We've had the worst drought for 7 years, not even really thinking we're finished. I mean, we did have a little bit of how do you say, a breather. We had a good rain season for 2021, but in actual fact, you should never sit back now and lean back and think, okay, we've had a good season and the next 5 are going to be okay. On the contrary, winds are getting worse. The backdrop of a fire and that danger in the Western Cape is actually getting worse. So, you know, there is always that piece of thinking, oh hell, what is going to happen when a fire in the mountains break loose, where I've got these vineyards where these farmers farm, and you've got to think about making fire breaks and doing your part as a farmer, being part of the FPA, all the insurance clauses, because insurance runs away nowadays when you're not doing your job either, and then how you can help those firefighters get to where they have to contain it. I'm just thinking about my friends in Grapevine. There's a huge fire going down there now. So if it's in the mountain, you kind of still feel safe. But once it comes down, you know, there's a myriad of problems that can happen and things that can go wrong.
So you've mentioned obviously that the Juliet Crew is still in its infancy. It's obviously on a limited budget. You're offering support through the sales of that particular Pinotage. Are you able to kind of highlight what it is, just so we can get an idea? And I'm trying to motivate people to buy not one bottle, but many bottles. Always
6 packs, 6 pallets, 6 containers. We like that. It comes in 6s, you see.
Exactly.
In the Swartland, a 6-pack doesn't really suffice.
No.
You need like 60 cases.
So, and then that's what I want to get to. So we need to try and raise as much money as possible. Sure. What exactly, do you know exactly what it'll go towards with regards to Juliet Crew, in terms of?
Well, at the moment, the first plight is they need a home. They need a base, what they call. Okay. And when these firefighters are on 24-hour to even longer hour shifts on end, and obviously putting your boots somewhere and putting your feet up, and not necessarily doing it on a secondhand couch, you know, those are the kinds of things that you'd like to care for. But we don't have the the whole at the moment. So there is a house that they can renovate, but we obviously need the funds for renovation. That's where the funds are starting, to get them somewhere where they can just relax, put something in the fridge, and just come down off the long shifts that they've been working for. So that is the number one issue. And at the moment we're paying, the Circa actually pays for housing and their salaries, because it is a private crew and they need to be paid. Obviously I don't, the Circa sales with all the lockdowns and that, we've had a bit of trouble raising enough funds through the sales of the wine, but we've been trying to have people write the story and get the word out there, to try and get a little bit better networked with somebody who has a bigger heart and a bigger bank account than mine.
I feel like you need to challenge your fellow Swartland winos to join you on this journey of trying to support the Juliet Crew. And I mean, I know there's quite a few brands out there that generate a bit of money.
Yeah, no, we're on it. The emails are flying out, so we'll see what happens. But it was obviously also a scenario of when I got onto it, we did miss the little Christmas scenario. I did have Christmas with the ladies, and we made them comfortable for a month or two, but that is not enough. And obviously I only started in December, and now harvest also came in between, but we had a lekker 2 days with the ladies in the vineyards. They helped harvesting the Circa, so they were involved in carrying a couple of crates and seeing how we do things in little lug boxes, which is a different kind of physics and exercise as to fighting a fire, because you're using different muscle groups. I had Kylie tell me, so it was quite funny. We played a little bit what we called kissy rugby in the cellar, throwing around the crates into the press, because we do whole bunch press for the bubbly, and they had to help get 480 crates offloaded in the vineyards onto a trailer, and then loading it off the trailer and then into the press. So it was about 3 times handling of 480 crates, which is kind of good physics for the day.
Oh, my shoulders are feeling sore just listening to that. I'm glad you mentioned the whole
30. Then you know what my month looked like.
I must find my chiropractor's phone number. I'm glad you mentioned the whole bunch pressing, because I actually wanted to ask you to tell us a little bit more about the Circa Pinotage Rosé. Sell the wine to us, what goes into it, and then inspire us to buy 6 pallets.
Please. I've got them ready. Listen, the Circa Pinotage is actually a fun. I'm also going to say, if you're looking for a porch pounder, that is how I created this wine. Coming off the idea a little bit, I used to call it the Prosecco, but the Italians have got a problem with those names. So I don't fight, 50 million Italians are a bit much for me. So I just decided to drop the Prosecco and stick to Circa in terms of the naming. But yes, using Pinotage is a bit different than Pinot Noir for bubbly. And my Huis van Chevallerie is built on using South African, or more uniquely South African, cultivars. And what is more South African than Pinotage? And we had yet to prove to a certain extent that Pinotage is actually better than its name was previously. I must say, in the last 5 to 10 years, it's changed. So we had a little hectare of Pinotage creeping in on the farm, which happened before I came back from my studies. And this 1 hectare was hanging around, and so what to do. And I just reminded myself, we make actually awesome rosé. So why not make a Pinotage rosé? Because by that point, I was already doing 4 years of Filia Chenin Blanc Cap Classique as well. And I thought, well, if one can do it with Chenin, rosé from Pinotage has always been good, but why not a bubbly? And then the next thing is how to make that wine as suitable and as palatable as possible. And the best way to make bubbly is by using the champagne method. So there is no 2 ways about it. There's no tank ferments. There's no funny things that you think you can do. Stick to the one that's done it for 1,000 years, and that's the bottle ferment from Champagne. That's the only thing I tend to copy or recipe. The rest is literally understanding what you're working with and being as meticulous and as perfectionist as you can be. You've got 4 days to make that base before it starts fermenting, and then nature takes over, and there's nothing you can do about it. So yeah, it is a meticulous 4-day, 5-day scenario where we whole bunch press. We only use the best juice. In terms of the first 50 liters also get blended in rather with the wine. We do not press further than about 0.8 bar. It's a 3-hour process, and the last hour I'm at the press tasting when we're going to stop and cut off. And then people say, but yes, numbers and liters, and how do you make that? You know, it's the reason why you pay maybe a little bit more is because I'm not too greedy when it comes to the juice per ton ratio, because we just want to use the best. We let it settle overnight, and then the natural processes take toll. And one of the nicest things, or the reason why I got onto making bubbly in the Swartland, is these granite soils at the early bulling actually give you a nice, lovely, natural, low pH and high acidity naturally. So I don't have to open lots of packets and try and change that during its course of its being. I can literally just, make use of what nature's given us, and try and take care of it. So after ferment, it does go through malolactic, which gives us a nice stability, and then it pretty much gets a little packet of yeast and a couple of liters of concentrate for the sweetness, because you've got to initiate a second fermentation. And then it goes to bottle, and we kindly wait for it. In the olden days, I was always in a hurry going, oh, we'll do a quick fix, but there's no quick fix on bottle fermentations. They do take their time. In the meantime, we're on a cycle with a circa between 12 and 14 months. So legally, we can also call it Cap Classique, but we generally just say Pinotage, Circa, non-vintage, just for the easy fix. But yes, it is qualified as a Cap Classique. And nowadays, from the 2021 vintage, we've changed vineyards, so it'll also be an old vine Pinotage vineyard.
I was just going to ask. Wow.
Yeah, planted in 1972. On the Paardeberg, 71, sorry, on the Paardeberg. Lovely old vineyard, and very excited about what's going on there. We've got a couple of plans, so it's really cool.
It'd be fascinating to do a vertical tasting of those and the comparison between the old vine and what you've been using.
I always try to keep it difficult. Oh, gits, jy's in die Swartland.
Because your Shannon vines are also old vines, aren't they?
Yes, that's been old vine since day one.
Yes, you were one of the original members of the Old Vine Project, if I remember.
Well,
right.
yeah, in fact, I was the first caller to take the list of the farmers and help Rosa through the database, because we all know when you create databases, you've got to ask people their permission to print their data or to have their data on a website. You know, you can't just use people's information. You've got to ask them. And we talked about this is about 15 years ago. I sat in Rosa's office phoning these lovely owners of vineyards, some irritated because it was a 0.5 hectare question and they'd long since ripped it out, wasting their time. And the other ones were interested and said, how can we help you get on board? And yeah, in fact, the farm I farmed in, with the family in the Paardeberg for 20 years, we literally sat down with Rosa's help and farmed those Chenin Blanc, 19 hectares of Chenin Blanc into old vineyard status. And it helped me make the filia to what it is today, creating something uniquely South African. Fun fact, the first Kaapse in South Africa was made from Chenin Blanc. So I decided to stick to that piece of lovely information because Chardonnay had yet to be stolen and stolen wrong. Ooh. You know, before the beginning 80s, there wasn't any Chardonnay to be had in the country to make bubbly from. So I just sort of just went back to that nice piece of history, and that's how the Filia was created. And in the meantime, she's also the first old vine bubbly certified. And then I also created the old vine Chenin Blanc called Nivedam, which is from the farm, which will now change names because we are no longer the owner and the brand is sold. So, but that is also fully old vine Chenin and obviously part of the old vine project.
And hopefully the new owners will protect that old vine status. That
was the nice story of the new owner. You could give it on to somebody who, because I'm not married, I don't have children, but when you do these things, you get involved with something that is a passion that is bigger than just being a brand owner. So you're trying to create something that will make an impact. You help people having fun in the wine. Doesn't matter if it's bubbly or wine or still wine as such, but and you can pass your hard work on to somebody, and you know that they can take it to the next step. So it's not a sad or negative scenario. On the contrary, I'm very excited to see what the new owner is going to do, because his passion for old vines made of him being my largest client. He started with less than a ton, and I remember there were a few neighbors standing on the barn or in the farmyard that morning going, what is this? And it came in lug boxes on a trailer down the hill, and it was less than a ton. And they looked at it and they said, oh, Christa, what are you doing? I'm like, that's the future. And they were laughing at me 15 years later. Everybody in the Heidelberg was doing a kissy scenario. So sure. Yeah, it became that kissy industry. There were other words used, obviously, by some farmers, but yeah, I was part of a few cool group of winemakers who decided to put, to put their heart into an old vineyard and try and save it.
And obviously, well done to you and the many others as well, and well done to you for cold calling all those farmers and getting them involved, because I'm sure there's many that are regretting that they pulled out their old vines. And
I actually still remember one nice call to an elderly lady, and we've got really old Sultana plantings as well up in the Orange River. And when you get the data of every single vineyard planted in South Africa, that sort of rocks up. There are quite a few old ones. So now you're phoning, the Oom and the Tannie or whoever, and this was an elderly lady. And she said, yeah, my man gaan die ding nou uitdruk. Daar's nou niks om verder te, like in Afrikaans, really stoere Oranje River, don't speak English. And I told her about this, and she immediately said she was going to make raisins from it. She was going to tell the story. She could put a sticker on it. And I somehow realized I actually need to go there or go back, phone her, and I'll be interested to see if she then did do the old vine raisins story kind of thing. But yeah, those are the little fun things you had while you were on the phone trying to get it done.
So if we want to support and we want to buy Circa Bubbly, where is it available from?
You see, I see the lovely sign behind you. And it's not available there. Because I moved a little bit out of the retail story. I just decided I was too small, and at some point it becomes a little bit of a tricky place to be in retail. And I kind of like to know all my clients. They all do tastings on my stoop, or I go to their stoops depending on where in South Africa they are. We've built a nice following in South Africa, which I'm proud to say helped me through the year of last, which is kind of nice because export's good, but how cool is it to build your brand in your own country, and actually, for that matter, on your doorstep? So at this point, the best place to be is info or Christa at huisvanchevallerie.com, which is the direct line to my cell phone. I can give you my cell phone number after this. And then there's a very good place to message me on Facebook or on Instagram. I literally answer those messages quite quickly. I'm always scared I miss out on a client that might want 60 cases. So I'm pretty active there, and Monique helps me nowadays. So it's no longer just me on my own, because sometimes you get a little bit rolled thin when you've got 10 hats to wear as a brand and business owner.
Okay, so we can hop onto the website or the Facebook page. Obviously, those details will accompany this interview.
The website's currently under construction. We just quickly need a week or two to just by the beginning of March be back on track. But then there will be a shop as well. So just look out, watch the space, be a bit patient. It was just harvest, but we're on it. And definitely now, I mean, the sales I do every day is the best way is Christa@huisvanchevallerie.com.
Okay. And funds are donated, or funds donated are facilitated through the NCC Environmental Services.
Yes, and it goes directly to the crew and everything they need.
Excellent.
And yes, can ask, they have got clothes sponsors. We need the house, the renovation money. There's only so many t-shirts you can wear. There's only so many t-shirts you can wear, but we love everybody's donations. Don't worry. It's just a matter of how you're going to reconstruct it to quickly channel it to the best or the first priority at the moment.
Yeah. Remember, of course, as a sponsor, you're also able to receive an 18A certificate for your sponsorship towards it. So
yes, you do.
Christa, lovely chatting with you, meeting you, and we wish you all the best of luck and success. Both with this particular project, but also with your future wine sales. Of course, Tony Da Costa at Liquor City Claremont, always supporting the local South African wine industry, regardless of whether your wines are sold through him. And so we would always ask that that you, the viewer, also go and visit his store and take a journey via the Grapevine.